So this is part 3 of the employee class. I install my Java SDK and I point it to the Java. If you look up where my circle is pointing at, my cursor is pointing at, I'm in my C drive. Java is the subdirectory, and then I also have a subdirectory called bin. So I'm going to go to that file, and here is that file, by the way. This is the file that we just worked on. So I completed everything with it. I'd like for you to store that in there. If you can go to the your Windows operating, just do Command CMD, and if you come up there and just do CD. I'm in my DOS environment right now, so let me change to the DOS environment to make it a little bigger, better resolution, so you can see. I think that is the best I can get it, the largest. I hope you can see this. But CD space ... from this prompt will get me to the root. CD ... back up to the root is the C prompt. This is the root of C. CD Java is what I created as a subdirectory from the root, and I'm in the Java. CD bin is my directory. And if you look at the way how I did the CD change directory and the name of the directory. If you ever want to see what it looks like, what's contained inside this, just do dir. It will list out everything for you. But I'm going to do CLS to clear it. So that clears the screen with it. But the file I'm looking for is in here. So we need to compile this thing. So Java C space what? Employee.java. You gotta write the whole name of the file with the file extension. Hit enter. It's not gonna do anything. That's all. That's all you have to do. By doing this, it creates a class file. Look, I just did this up here to show you with it. So you look at, here's the file that we just worked on. This is a Java virtual machine bytecode, okay, JVM. So this you can't run this yet. You got to have another class to demo this. That's very important. This class doesn't do anything. Remember now, this class that we just worked on. This is just a blueprint, a template. Now you have to instantiate this concept with some data, and that's what we need to go in next, is to run some of the data with it. So here's what I'd like for you to do. I'm going to put this document. Let me just minimize this and over here, and I'm going to put this side by side over here, and this one over here. So this is the class, the employee class that we just did. Here again, you come in, you put your name, goes here. And I'd like for you to do the same thing. And both of these files have to be in the same directories with it. This time we're going to do what? Public class employee and demo, or however you want to call this. I don't care what you want to call it. You're going to hear this in industry. They call it the driver, employee driver. This will demonstrate, instantiate the objects coming out of it. But let's do this first before we and save this thing. So what I always like to do is type this up, and I always like to highlight the name of the class, like I do right here. Control C, copy it, file save as, navigate to that folder that you were working in. I have my folder in my sandbox with this thing. Make sure you do a pull down all files like we just did. And I want to place this in here as the employee demo, and make sure you put the .jav after it. And make sure it says save as type all files here. If you leave it as a .txt, it's going to tag a .txt after this thing, and it's not going to work when you compile. Alright? So make sure you have what I have on the screen right here, and it has to be the same directory as your employee class. And then I click on save. Okay, and we are ready to continue with this. So here we are. Those of you that had me for 1436, I talked to you about what is, remember in C++, you have a main function. It's called int main, and that happens to be the main function. Well, in this class that you are writing, is the public static, is the instantiation class for this thing, is you need a front door basically to come in and call this class inside of this thing. So public static void main, this statement, this function tells you this is where you need to actually come in, and where the code will start to come in, and I don't expect you to understand this particular line of code, but this is your main function that you're going to actually call other classes to instantiate in here. Does that make sense? So bear with the syntax with this thing. Bear with the syntax with this thing. Every program can only have one of these things. One of these things. Okay, with it. If you have two of these things and you compile, it will cause an error. That's how it is with it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is what? I need for you to create 3 instances of the employee class. Well, how do you create? Here's the syntax. You're going to use the employee syntax. Employee, can't spell employee. And the name of the employee. This employee is this over here on my left-hand side. I'm going to make it some name that's changeable with it. So I'm going to call it employee 1. The syntax is equal new employee class. Make sure you put a space after it like that. Okay? I do this for 1. I need to do it for 3 of them because it has Susan Myers, Mark Jones, Joey Rogers with it, right? And in real life we don't do this. It's just a purpose. In real life I'll probably write a loop to do this, and that will get into. And I'll do this, and I have to do this for 2, all right? And I want you to do this for employee number 3 as well. So you do it. Write the, create the third. I don't know what you want to call this thing. Create the 3rd instance. Okay, below. So you write it because we need one for Joey Rogers. All right. So that's 1. Next, we need to store this information into the employee. You gotta watch the time here. So when you look at the employee and how you store this thing, remember now, setters and getters. How do you store? You store things by writing to it, right? Writing to it. So you store. At this time, you haven't learned how to write loops yet because this is chapter 3. Loops is we're gonna do this in chapter 4 and 5. But you need to write things to the employee, and that's what you want to do next with it. So the next step is I want you to create. You're going to store data, meaning write data, store or write data for the first employee. Okay. Now let me move this over here so it doesn't word wrap so you can see what I'm talking about. So for the first employee. So how do I do that? I'm going to use this object right here. You see this object right here? I'm going to actually place this here. Now, whatever this class, this employee class I have over here, I'm going to use it over here. So with the dot syntax, in your reading, when you actually read about the dot syntax, you're going to use what? Anytime you use a dot syntax, you get to access the methods that comes with that class. That's what the dot syntax is saying. So here, if this thing has black eye and green toes and 5 fingers and 3 ears, guess what this thing will have? It will have the same properties and methods as what the class has. Remember now, the class is the blueprint. This is the object that you just instantiate. So let me just show you how you write 1. So you're going to do set what? You're going to call the method. What's the method that you're going to do? You're going to set name, right? Void set name, and you're going to pass across the name is a string in here. So I'm going to just snag the name of the method right here. Come over here. Put this here, but inside of this thing, how do you do a string? A string has to be between quotations. So the first name is Susan. Get the spelling right here. Susan Meyer. Close that quote. That's 1. You just wrote to employee 1 name. Do the second one for me. You have to do what? Employee. You're going to call what? Set number, right? So you do the same thing with this one as you would actually continue here. Then this one becomes what? Set ID number, which is over here, and you're going to pass across an ID number over here with this thing. So you need to pass out, what is that ID number? I'm reading from the book, is 47899, right? 47899. So you pass in 47899, you just wrote to it. Write your next one for me, okay? So you see how that works? So yeah, I'm just going to do this. You got 4, total of each one of these things, you got to have 4. Okay, so guess what? You got some work to do. So up to this point, I did 2 of them for you, so you have to write other ones. This is only for 1 employee. You got to do this for how many times? That's right. There are 3 employees. Very labor intensive, is it? So you got to do one for the second one, for the second person. Oop. You got to do one for the second employee number, right? So you can do it for second, and that becomes what? This is number 2. This is this guy right here. You see that? And this has become number 2. So you're going to do 2, and you're going to put in here, what's the second person's name? Is what? Mark Jones. And this guy is what? What is his number? 39119? 39119. Okay. And you got to do the same thing for it. Again, do the same thing. You got to do this how many times? 4 more times, or 2 more times to complete your writing to that. All right. So you write all of this thing to it. You got things stored into it. Okay. Let me check the time. Hold on.